Right, okay, good evening everyone. Hey, welcome to today's session. Right, so as usual, I'll run through the markets over here, highlight the opportunities available for the week, and of course, if you guys have any questions, feel free to drop it in. Um, yep, I do see Marvin is here earlier, right? Asking about dollar Canadian. We'll definitely go through that, right? Because that pair is also in my regular watch list, right? Which I can't look into it on the regular basis, right? So we'll talk definitely on the dollar cap. Okay. So let's get started with. I would actually want to jump into and talk about the pound odd trade first. Okay. Because I think it's a little bit more time sensitive, right? Because we're in a live market environment. Then we'll come back and talk about the other major pairs, right? So Pound Australia over here. First off, on a high time frame, just want to give you the context and the overall perspective. Basically, I'm looking at bearish perspective where obviously this is very strong in momentum, right? We did had a pullback, where price actually comes back and retests this area. Okay, and of course the pullback here as of now overall it's still very corrective in nature, so we are expecting another push lower, potentially even breaking this low, right? And the room to the downside, to be honest, you can see is pretty huge, right? Have like stretch this out. Okay, um once this area is clear, there's a good chance the next area that price would gravitate towards is like 2.0080, right? It's very close to the 2.0 psychological number, and even potentially lower, right? So the downside is definitely there in terms of the room in which price can travel. Okay, and this was a trade that I kind of shared um, yesterday as well, right? In terms of the potential entry. So we did get tagged in yesterday, and then this morning, I would say yesterday going into today morning, the price reaction wasn't ideal. Of course, until the recent one that we had like this huge momentum candle, right? But in the morning, we were basically looking at it from this perspective here, right? Which is not really ideal, and I kind of mentioned we might consider look to get out at break even, right? To exit this trade a little bit earlier if we had the opportunity. So I did actually shift my target to break even, and I got out and on this trade break even, right? But of course, on the high time frame perspective, things have been still the same, right? The bearish bias is still there. It's just that I don't really like this initial reaction of this particular trade setup, so I decided to get it at break even. And speaking of that, right, that's where I'm looking at it again, and we do have another opportunity that we can look to re-enter. If price actually does give us that pullback, right? Okay. So what we're seeing over here, okay, if I can remove this away, what we're seeing over here is that we had this impulsive momentum push, right? Obviously, we also have that nice little feather gap. If you look into the final details, of course, we have that liquidity sweep, break of structure, feather gap, everything is there. Okay. So what I'm looking at is, of course, if price does give us an opportunity to pull back and re-enter on this sell trade idea. Okay, see if I can adjust that. Okay, is the volume a little bit better? Let me just do a quick check. Okay, the audio is a little bit better right now. Just want to know. okay? I think what I'm seeing here should be a little bit better in terms of the volume itself. Okay, yeah, so yesterday, no, we did not run a session yesterday. Okay, so this week's session here is on Tuesday. Okay, yep. So I hope it's clearer in terms of audio. Okay, yeah, so I was speaking about the pound odd, right? So I'm saying that if today price actually does give us this pullback, right, we might have a second opportunity to get involved in this position. Same trade idea over here, where we are looking at the sell, and of course the targets on this particular trade, to be very honest, I'm going to leave it open, and I'm going to manage this trade in terms of a trailing kind of like profits management, right? Because I feel that this downside here can really, number one, extend towards this low area, which obviously will give us a very, very healthy risk to reward ratio. Based on this is about 4.8, potentially going to 5. And this one here is just the hourly, right? Because if you stretch it on the 4 hours, I mentioned you can go all the way into 2.0 as our target, right? And that would be really, really huge in terms of like the risk to reward ratio, right? So this is something that I'm looking at the moment, and I just want to talk about this first before we look into the other markets, because it's something that I feel that if this continue to pull back today, we might get a trade maybe by later. Okay, so I just want to kind of touch on this, since the market is in a live environment at the moment. Okay, so yep, with that said, I'll jump back into the dollar index first, right? And we'll kind of talk about this for now, right? So dollar index had a decent bounce, so we are transiting into more of a bullish bias moving forward. Okay, of course, given if we can see a nice little kind of corrective pullback here, of course, in details a true wave development, then that will give us a nice little opportunity to expect the dollar to strengthen towards the 98.8 region, right, which is where the high is. Okay, so this week's focus on the dollar index would be on the bullish side, right, and of course that would translate to some of the major pairs that we're going to look into. Okay, so euro dollar over here, potentially bearish bias. The only part that I kind of like not really paying too much attention on euro dollar as of now is because on the lower time frame we don't really get a valid decent setup to get involved in the sell, right? I mean, the directional bias as of now is pretty clear. This is basically an expectation of a three wave, but if you go down to the lower time frame, we don't really see any sort of a setup development as of now, right? So I don't want to spend too much time kind of looking at this. I don't think that we might get an opportunity to trade this down unless you're using a slightly different strategy or setup. Then yeah, maybe you might get something, right? But based on the setup I'm using, euro dollar, that isn't anything as of in the near term. Okay, then we have the pound. Okay, pound is a little bit in a unique situation. Okay, now obviously if you take reference from the dollar index, being bullish, then you'll be expecting the pound dollar to be bearish. It's a valid kind of focus as well, but at the same time we are seeing this as a channel or a trend line support level, right? So few elements that are a little bit contradicting in a way, right? First, you see an impulsive drop. Okay, second, you see a bounce here, which the market actually paused and reacted very, very nicely as of now around the 61. We did not really see an impulsive bounce to the upside. This may develop into a corrective move, right? We need a little bit more time for the price to develop into a clearer pattern, then we can make a more informed decision. But yeah, so we are at a crossroad, right? In a way, we're at a key area where we want to see how price is going to react before we make a decision on whether I want to focus on buy or sell. Okay, so a couple of things I'm going to look out for is if this is going to be developing correctively, right? We'll be looking at sell for sure, right? Then what we'll be looking at in updating this view is perhaps this is completed, right? And of course, we can also see from that perspective where this WXY has been done, right? So you can see here 1, 2, 3. It can be a completed three-wave structure, which means if this is corrective, this can continue lower, retest this, or even the low here. Okay, so that's one scenario. If this correction, or say if this development is corrective in nature, right? If this actually does a V-shaped bounce, okay, then that changes the scenario, where then we'll be looking at a pullback and we can expect that pushback up, right? Then that will be where we're looking at the Y wave here, right? So this will be a 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we want to remain kind of flexible and be adaptive to what the market is telling us. Okay, but for now, as of what we're seeing, is we just need to be patient, maybe give it another day or two, see how price is going to develop around this key area, then we'll come back and make that decision from there. Okay, so that's on the pound side. Then we have Aussie. Aussie is a little bit clearer. Aussie will definitely be more of a short-term bearish bias, where we're expecting the pullback, right? But of course, we want to see price kind of look at the area around the 15,618 first. Okay, so we want to wait for the corrective pullback towards 6640, 6650. If we can get that, then that's definitely an opportunity that we can look to sell in the short term. Okay, so I think that's quite clear in terms of the direction. We just need to wait for the pullback, right? Then we have dollar CAD, right, which I do see like Marvin is asking about this pair. This is gonna be neutral for now, right? We do see that price is basically in a huge consolidation area, and until we get a decent break out of it, I would very much just remain neutral on this. Okay, because this pattern structure, to be honest, is just not tradable, right? I mean, short term, if you want to trade the bounce, from the bottom, you expect it to bounce to the top, and then from the top, you expect it to bounce to the bottom. Yeah, you can capitalize on that kind of move for sure. Okay, but to me, it's just I would look and focus on things that have a clearer direction, pattern structure first, right? So this is definitely not in my list. Okay, and because we are in a consolidation phase, it will take a longer period for price to develop into a pattern that is clearer. Okay, and for that reason, this week very unlikely we're gonna get anything on the dollar Canadian. Okay, so I'm not gonna focus too much on this. Then we have dollar yen, which again gives us a very nice little clear structure and directional focus as well. With it, came back and test this area, very nice little reaction. So right now, if you can get a corrective pullback, that's definitely a buy opportunity, a buy trade setup. Okay, I would say that this is definitely a pair that we can keep an eye on this week, right? It may not be a setup tomorrow, but there's a very high probability we'll get something within the week, right? If you look into the hourly chart, okay, to be honest, it's not the clearest setup that I'll be just looking to buy here, but I would love to see some sort of a pullback, right? So you can imagine and visualize, right, on a high time frame pullback. And then what we want to see here is on the lower time frame, some sort of a setup developing around here. Okay, so the setup is not it enters here and then we jump in and buy, but it's more of on a high time frame. We want the trade, we want the price to come into the setup, the area here, then we look for the setup to get involved, right? So if you look at this here on the hourly, right, what we eventually would love to see is price pulling back, right, tap into the key area, form some sort of a setup, right, and then we'll look to buy from there. Okay, so now this here really depends on how price is going to continue to develop this week. We might get a completed setup that we can look to trade maybe by end of this week, or if not, then definitely something we can look into going into the new week, right, which is next week as well. Okay, so dollar yen, definitely in the watch list. Okay, you might want to keep an eye on that as well. Okay, then we have gold and silver. both of these commodities are still pushing up very strong with momentum, so obviously the direction is there, right? Very clear you want to be on the buy side of things as of now, unless you're looking at, you know, some sort of a counter trend pullback, but general trend direction is definitely bullish. However, price is currently at the top, right? So you do not want to be buying at the very top. Okay, so the take here is wait for price to give us some sort of a meaningful pullback, a substantial pullback before we jump in and look for the next buy trade. Okay, if you already have any position, let's say you have a long-term position or in, you know, on ETF, for example, GLD on gold, my suggestion is just hold on to it. Okay, obviously you can decide to shift your stops, trail your profits, you know, whatever it is. But I just feel that if you get involved in a good and decent price point, it's really just worth holding on to it, right? And you can even think about if price pulls back substantially, look at it as a scale in opportunity, right? An opportunity for you to add on to your position, and in the long run, I'm just gonna be bullish on gold, right? So pretty straightforward. That silver here as well, pretty similar. Okay. Then we have crude oil, right? Crude oil is also a current position that I'm in. I actually got out from a trailing stop. Okay. So this is something I would say a good opportunity to talk about how I manage some of the positions from my end as well. Okay. So this one here, because it's a little bit zoom out, right? I actually look at this on a 2-hour time frame, right? So that you can see things in much of a nicely scaled perspective, right? So you can see the setup is pretty standard. Liquidity strip, break a structure, pullback, tap onto the area, very nice, decent reaction. Okay, I got out here just about where we are right now. Okay, now you might say, you know, if I take profit or throw my stop and protect my profits, I would have taken a little bit more. Yes, right. I mean, there's no perfection in it. But basically, I'm a little bit not too aggressive in managing trades that are trading in the direction of the overarching trend, right? If you are doing some sort of a counter trend or a short-term pullback, I will be a little bit more aggressive in managing my stops, right? But if you're trading in line with the overarching direction, I'll a little bit more, you know, loose in managing it. So crude oil here, the overarching direction is essentially bearish, right? Because we are looking at it from perspective that this is impulse, this is a correction. We are expecting more downside. Now, obviously, would price just react off this area and start to make a reversal? Definitely, right? So that's the part where shifting stops and protecting profits, so you don't give entirely back. You don't give your profits entirely back to the market. I think that's important, right? So a lot of you might have the question on like how do you manage a active position, right? When to shift stops and shift it to where and things like that. I keep it very simple, right? The first rule of thumb is typically if I see a nice impulsive reaction from my entry and I start to see some decent profits, right? Where I don't expect price to come back and tag me at my entry, I would just shift stops to break even. That's the first step, right, in management of trade, is to remove that risk. Another little kind of like tip that I look into is if today my risk to reward ratio is 1:2, and let's say the trade is running in profits about 1:1, right? Meaning close to halfway through my targets, it's also a good sign to actually consider shifting stops to break even. Okay. Once we've done that, then the next thought process, the next stage is to ask yourself, can we protect some profits so that we don't give away all profits if price decides to U-turn? Then that's the part where I use a very simple framework of if today we're selling, okay, whenever we see some sort of a high, we can actually actively shift our stop to those high points, because like things like that happens, that we don't give away the entire thing, right? If you're a little bit more aggressive, of course, you could have shifted here and then protect even this bit of a profit, right? So that's essentially how I manage it. Okay, so pretty straightforward. Okay, so that's on crude oil. Would I be looking to sell right now? Probably not anymore. I mean, if you're in this position and you think that you want to hold on to this, you know, with the opportunity that price can actually still go down and tag us at our target, by all means, right? But I wouldn't say look for sell if you're not in any position, because I feel that right now, with price actually reacting, right, and tagging off that zone, okay, we might see some serious support forming here. Okay, so just be aware of that. Okay, so that's on crude oil, and then for S&P, I think it's very similar to gold and silver. Essentially, we're looking at upside. Okay, so equities market, to be honest, this year is in a bullish run as well. Okay, so same thing. If you have some position in, you know, S&P, SPY, you might consider hold on to it, right? Just trade it, of course, and then if you do get some decent pullback, again, that's an opportunity that can consider as a skill in. Cool, right? So I think pretty straightforward, right? In terms of like gold, silver, S&P, basically look for buy, but you don't buy in now because we're at the very top. Okay. Pound yen. Okay. So pound yen on the 4-hour time frame, we are expecting short-term bearish move. Okay, I think in terms of pattern structure, it's pretty clear. This is very corrective in nature. We get this impulsive push. If we can get a corrective structure pullback here, we can expect one more drop towards this low, right? Last week we did look up for an opportunity here where the market dropped. You know, it was unfortunate to have that trade tag out and then the price just reversed like that. But it's part of trading, right? You never get 100% right all the time. You always want to just manage your risk, right? That's the most consistent aspect that can manage, right? And that's something that you have full control over with. Okay, and again, that ties into why like risk to reward ratio is important, because if today you only have like 60% win rate, which is not too bad, with a very healthy risk to reward ratio on average, you can actually be very profitable on it. Okay, so that's the take on pound yen right now. Very simple structure. I don't see a need to overcomplicate that, but basically this is very corrective in itself. This is impulsive in itself. There's a good probability if this corrective pullback continues, we can see more downside, right? And of course, we also have a valid setup right now, right? So again, if you look at it on an hourly time frame perspective, okay, what do we have? We have the fig break. Liquidity sweep, the market reverses impulsively, break that low. We have this small little order block, right? And nice little confluence where the 67 is. If price can pull back from here, that's our potential sell trade. Okay, so straightforward. Again, this one here, if you look at it on the hourly, the target primarily is at 199.1, right? But 199.1 is here, right? So what I feel here is if you're really interested in fully maximizing this potential trade, you can have like multiple take profit, maybe one take profit at 199.1. You can take partial profits, shift your stops. Okay, and then you can have your second extended target at 198, right? There is a good chance price would likely go towards that low. Okay, so if these things work out nicely, right? If I just show you where 198 can give you, okay, it's a 3.5 risk to reward ratio trade, right? Very decent. If you just aim for 199.1, obviously that's going to be 1:2. Okay. Yeah, so do look out for this. There's a very good chance we might get involved in this trade within this week, looking at how price is currently developing. Okay, so that's on the pound yen. Then we have odd yen. Odd yen here, we did had a trade taking profit earlier on as well, from last week to this week. Right now, I don't see any clear opportunity to be looking for trade setups. Okay, we are expecting that pullback, but the pullback is already almost like, I would say, 70% done, right? Because this is the pullback that we were expecting. is more or less done, so I don't want to be overly aggressive in looking at the short-term sell anymore, right? Among the yen pairs, pound yen seems to be a nicer opportunity to be selling it. If you're looking at buying up the yen pairs, then dollar yen would be a better one to look at, right? So I think Aussie yen, you probably just want to put it aside for the week. Okay. Yeah, then we have the pound odd, which I kind of talked about it at the very start, right? And lastly, over here is Bitcoin, right? So Bitcoin is currently testing the key area. Again, whenever we at a key area, whenever price is there, it's like it. We are at a crossroad, right? What the market price does next is crucial because that will give us some clue, you know, in terms of like crossroad, is it heading to the left or is it heading to the right, right? So in terms of trading here, whenever price is the crossroad, what's gonna develop next is gonna give us more information and more clue as to, are we likely gonna look for upside, are we likely gonna look for downside? Okay, so what I mean by it is, right, if price is already at a key level, there's most likely only one or two ways price can develop into, right? One is this pulls back and react correctively, right? So obviously if that's the case, then we can expect more downside. Very, very straightforward, right? The other scenario is price actually reacted off this level with a V-shaped formation. Then obviously if that's the case, then we'll be looking for more upside, right? So again, it leaves clue for us to determine what direction we want to focus. If price just continue to develop into a crawl in terms of a key area here, it's also pretty straightforward, right? Then what we'll wait for is a reversal sign, and then we'll look for upside from there. Okay, so again, when you really understand the probability of how price can develop, you realize that it's either one of these three scenarios, right? I mean, I would say 90% of the time, either of these three scenarios will be developing, right? One of it will likely be the case. There will be that very, very few possibility where it just go into something very, very complex or something that is really unclear. If that's the case, then obviously we don't touch it, right? So that's the gist of it, right? Whenever we look at pattern structure, whenever we look at directional bias, it's really identifying some of the patterns that we can recognize, which tends to repeat itself over and over again. Okay, so BTC here really, you know, you want to give it another 1 or 2 days and see how things are going to move forward before deciding on the directional bias to focus on, right? Yeah, so those are a few things to note. I think this week here, there are already some things that we can immediately have it in our watch list. Some things, I would say some pairs, some opportunities that we can keep a lookout for. But we just need to give it another day or two and see how things are going to develop. Then we have that clarity moving forward. Okay. Good. So let's see if you guys have any other instruments that you'd like me to just talk about. I do see here Marvin is asking about Rich Tech Robotics. It's probably a stock, I would say. Right, RR. Cool. Very, very strong move to the upside. Okay, I think it just got IPO and listed end of November, right? Very, very interesting stock. I mean, I don't know the fundamentals of this, obviously, but from a technical point of view, it went as high as $10 and then it dipped as low as a penny stock, and then right now it's trading back at $5.50. Yeah, earnings has been, I mean, from here, very, very quick one. Earnings has been to the upside in a way, where the market consensus is that it's not going to make money, but the surprise is actually it did not lose money. Yeah, so that is where that push up is, right? From a technical perspective, it's definitely bullish because of this momentum here, right? But again, we are at the top, so you probably do not want to jump in immediately. Yeah, we are still, to be honest, testing this high. Okay, so you want to see a nice clean break out of that area. Okay, so today might give you that piece of information, right? If today price goes up and is able to sustain above this area, which is around $5, the next pullback you get can be a potential buy trade opportunity. Okay, but if today you start to see price goes up but instantly reverses and closes back down today, that's a reversal sign, which means that this can be a potential double top, right? So just bear that in mind. Okay, so that's my take on this stock. Okay, Noel asks, can we say that UK 100, which is the FTSE, is it in a corrective phase now? Let's see. Yes, okay, I would put this as a very, very simple projection, especially with this corrective move here. It opens up the possibility where we can see a little bit more downside, right? And then that builds in a bigger structure here as well as a WXY, right? If you want to do a little bit of FIB projection, usually we just do a 1:1 equal measurement, right? So that will bring you around that zone. If you look left in terms of confluence, very nice area there as well. So this is the projection, right? So if I start to mark in the invalidation level, that will be it. Okay, if you go down to a smaller time frame, that's going to be your order block. And of course, if I just drop down for you, to be honest, you can even consider a potential short-term sell if you want to, right? Something like this. Cool. Right, so to answer your question, yeah, I would see this as a corrective phase. You know, after this impulsive push, it's very common for the market to just go back into consolidation pullback phase before the continuation. Okay, so yeah, if you're into FTSE, then definitely something you can keep an eye on. Okay, next one here I see is from Tan. Long time no see. Two ticker symbol ZIM and TIGR. Okay, cool. Again, some of these companies I wouldn't know the fundamentals of it, right? So just bear that in mind as I share with you that my take on it is purely on the technical patterns. If you're into fundamentals as well, just make sure you go and look into that yourself, right? So very quick one here. Yeah, I would say from a daily chart overall, we'll be leaning towards bullish patterns, right? Bullish structure and directional bias. On the 4-hour time frame, we did have a gap here, which is great, which means that the market actually bounced off this. You can imagine gap as a impulsive move, okay? So think of it as a line that fills up the gap, right? So that's definitely an impulsive push to the upside, right? So in terms of SMC, that would naturally be your favorite gap, okay? So I would say this one here, I'm leaning towards bullish bias, okay? But to be honest, I would love, in terms of pattern, right, I would love this to go up a little bit higher first, then only that pullback, right? Yeah, the reason of that is very simple, right? Because we do have some structure over here, and right now the price is kind of testing it. You can see that, right? So if you actually make a move higher first, we clear off this area, then only the pullback. The bullish sign is a little bit more confirmation, right? If we don't get that break to the upside first, and then this just pulls back, and then that's it. This can actually continue lower first, then only maybe eventually that push, right? Very possible. Because if you look at it from a structure perspective, this is your swing high, this is a move down. You haven't really cleared any sort of a key level, right? You're technically still in control. The bearish move is still in control. Okay, so you can visualize where I'm coming from, right? So if this actually clears above that area, then only start doing the pullback. is a little bit more convicted in the upside. Okay, so that's that small little details that I'll be looking out for. Okay, if I were to trade this, right? TIGR. Okay, Tiger stocks. Let me just look at it on a high time frame. Okay, this is definitely very corrective in its development. Okay, we did came to the top. Okay, not exactly the very top, but again, it's an area that price is currently reacting off it. Seems to be coming down pretty impulsive as of now. For a minimum expectation, right, it does seem that price may be developing a pullback. Okay, so I would say short term, I wouldn't be surprised to see the market actually pull back towards like 940, 840, which is the 50 and 618 zone in the near term, right? So if you're interested in this move, right, then you can wait for a pullback here to look for a sell. If you're more into looking for buy trade on this, I would say wait for price to come down towards the 50 and 618, see how it develops first, right? Because this pattern structure, okay, this pattern here has a good possibility where price can actually come back, test this low, then only go. Okay, there is that possibility of happening. So obviously, if you're looking to buy, you want to look at how price is going to react off that 50 and 618. If you're looking for short-term sell, right, then what you can look out for is a corrective pullback, look to sell. You might even consider take partial profits in your short-term sell and turn this into a swing trade sell, right? You never know, but if that happens, then you can capitalize on this as well. Okay, yeah, so that's my take on these two equities. Okay. Any other questions or any other instruments that you guys have? All good? Great. So if there isn't any other things, then I hope today's session give you guys some ideas to work on moving forward for the week, right? And of course, all the best. We'll see how the market continue develops, and we'll talk to you next week. Okay, see you guys.